All right, we're getting ready to start our third keynote, and before we do, I would like to recognize a group that is I believe they're in here somewhere, eating their lunch, and again, I can't see because the lights do some wonderful things to the new lens in my right eye. But this group is a group, this is a group that has greeted us with such enthusiasm, that it's made us feel special as we enter in the morning and yesterday afternoon. Where are my city year folks? Let's give them a big round of applause. There they are. This side jaunt over to the summit is nothing like what they do every day in our schools. They're supporting our students in the Little Rock School District. They are mentoring and tutoring kids. They are involved in the lives of the students that we serve every day, and that's just something really special. And then they come here and they help us remember what that feels like, what it is like to actually have that enthusiasm for all those different interactions. So we really do. We appreciate that you're here. We love learning with you, and appreciate that you take the time to do that. At this point, I want to introduce our next keynote speaker, Dr. Sonny Magana. Tell you a few things. I first learned about Dr. Magana from Dr. Roberts, and we were looking at high reliability schools and what are some of the things that we do in innovation that are really congruent. You know, innovation can be risky because we're trying some things that haven't been done exactly the way others have done them before. Sometimes they've never been done before. And so it's nice to be able to connect some of the things that we do that are on that cutting edge with practices that we know are going to be effective. And what Dr. Magana is going to bring to us is his T3 framework, which talks a lot, it's got an evidence base, and this connection to the high reliability schools, you know, you guys are kind of at the top of the list. We're all really, you know, we're really stretching. You guys are moving into those areas. Some of you are doing standards-based grading. Some of you are implementing competency-based learning, things that are considered to be at the top of the levels for high reliability schools. And Dr. Magana is going to bring us a message that connects to that, but also connects to how we use tools and the pedagogy for using tools that will take us into the next generation. He is a colleague of Dr. Robert Marzano and co-wrote the High Reliability School series, and I would like you to help me welcome Dr. Sonny Magana to the stage.
I hope you like rock and roll. I have a confession to make. I know it's only rock and roll, but I like it. My name's Sonny Magana. I'm a simple teacher. I'm an author, a researcher. I work with Barbara Marzano. I work with John Hattie. I work with Christidi from Harvard University. I started my career teaching biology in South Jersey, where I'm from, so I'm a biology teacher. And my training has been in systems biology. So I look at whole systems, and I've been really interested in looking at the dynamic interplay between whole systems. So what I'm going to share with you today is a synthesis of nearly four decades of research on pedagogy and technology. But I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a musician. This is a picture of my band. We're called the Bad Pennies because we just keep showing up. And the three things that really I'm passionate about, three loves of my life: teaching, music, and my wife Tracy, but not necessarily in that order. And here in this picture on the left, that's my band, the Bad Pennies, and Tracy's a member of the Bad Pennies. So what I'm going to share with you today is kind of a collection between what we know about pedagogy in this 21st century, the tools that we have access to, and where we're going. And I call this the moonshot in education, because we have the opportunity right now to actually achieve a moonshot that no other generation has been able to experience because of where we are right here, right now. So if you want to take part of this conversation, this is a global conversation, follow me on Twitter. Let's see if we can get everybody to sign up on Twitter. I'm at Sonny Magana, or follow me at Sonny Magana, and use the hashtag T3Challenge. Now, before I begin, in 1961, President John F. Kennedy implored the United States with something that was so out of the ordinary. He challenged us. And so let's have a listen to this challenge, the moonshot challenge.
So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. We shall send to the moon, 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
Now, 50 years ago, I was 8 years old in my parents' home in South Jersey, and I saw this on our television set. You remember? 50 years ago.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Okay, I just checked getting back up to that first step. That isn't collapsed too far. Roger, we copy. It's a pretty good little jump. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We got a beautiful picture of you guys up down there.
Let me tell you, Bob, this flag is a beautiful picture. Houston, that's beautiful. This has got to be one of the most proud moments of my life, I guarantee you.
Neil Armstrong's first step on the moon is something that galvanized our nation. It didn't matter who you were, what your background was, it galvanized us as Americans and allowed us to see that the transcendent pursuit, thinking and dreaming the impossible dream, is something that's necessary in order to achieve that dream. It took 8 years from President Kennedy's speech in 1961 to the lunar landing in 1969 to achieve an impossible dream. Well, we have an opportunity right now to achieve an impossible dream in education, and that is to double student learning, double student academic achievement. We can't do it by doing the same things that we've been doing. So what I want you to do right now is do a thought experiment. In your mind, imagine, what would that look like? What would your schools be like? What would your classrooms be like if student learning were to be doubled? That's a moonshot. It seems crazy. It seems outlandish. It seems impossible. But it is possible. The question is, how? And why? Why do we want a double achievement? Well, the world has changed. The world is going to continue to change. And we need to be able to prepare students for a world that's going to be more volatile, more uncertain, more chaotic, and filled with more ambiguity than any other generation has ever experienced. That's why. How? is the next question. How do we do it? And that's why I've synthesized 40 years of research into this framework called the T3 framework. And it helps you categorize not just the use of technology, but a new pedagogy. This is a next generation pedagogy that helps categorize the uses and impact of technology in a hierarchy. T1, T2, T3. Translational, transformational, transcendent. This is built on 38 years of research. Research matters in education. Research matters. But not all research is the same. In fact, there's different levels of research. The first level is personal observation. When you see things happening in your classroom or in your school and you think, okay, this has an impact. That's called personal opinion, personal experience. It's filled with error, it's not valid, there could be random things that are happening, so it's the lowest level of reliability, but it's still something. The second level is called collective experience. That's when two or more people see a relationship between variables, like technology and achievement. It's higher than level 1, but it's still relatively low because now you could have collective error, collective bias, and the introduction of random interactions. At the third level, that's when we enter the realm of science. Systematic observation helps us intentionally reduce errors and biases and remove influences that could be randomly confound our findings. Here's the trouble with one particular study, is that oftentimes one study is completely refuted by another study. So who are you going to believe? Remember the whole language phonics debate? Remember that debate? There was a line in the sand. There were just as many studies proving that whole language was effective as there were studies proving phonics was effective. So who are you going to believe? Level 3 is a starting point of science. There's more to it. Level 4 is compounding evidence. When you have hundreds, thousands of studies that purport the same relationship between variables. But that's not the ultimate level. The ultimate level is called the preponderance of evidence. And that's when you have not just thousands, but tens of thousands of studies showing the same relationship between variables. So you could think of this scale as not only an evidence scale, but also a reliability scale. Are you going to bank your student's future on level 1 evidence, somebody's opinion? No, of course not, but we do it all the time. I challenge us to level up and experience 4 and 5 level of reliability because we'll have a higher confidence that this is going to have the outcomes that we desire. Now, at that 5th level, the preponderance of evidence, that's called meta-analysis. It's a relatively new field. It's only been around for about 30 years. In meta-analysis, scientists take multiple studies and use them to create an effect size. You can think of meta-analysis as an analysis of analyses. And from all those studies, you generate what's called an effect size. It's a statistical measure. Instead of having subjects, now you have studies. One way to think about it is that with meta-analysis, it's like getting in a helicopter and rising up, and then you can see a whole range of samples, a whole range of studies, and draw more accurate relationships between variables. Now, the person who's done the most to help us understand meta-analysis and effect size is John Hattie. Raise your hand if you know who John Hattie is. Excellent, excellent. I'm delighted to share that I've been working with him. He's a mentor and a friend, just a delightful person. But he's given us so many gifts. If you haven't read Visible Learning, go and get that book. And in it, he said that effect size is the most reliable way to determine what has an impact on student achievement. It's the most reliable way to determine, not opinion, not catchy phrases, not popularity on Twitter, but effect size. And he's made it really easy for us. He's given us an effect size odometer. And we can categorize influences on student achievement based on their effect size, whether it's negative, low, average, or high. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to the point 4. See that arrow of point 4? That's the average. Of all the influences Hattie studied, point 4 is the average effect size. So another way of looking at that is that point 4 represents the average quantity of learning the average student earns or acquires in an average year. It's the tipping point. 0.4 is an average. Anything below 0.4, not very desirable. Anything above 0.4 ranges in what he calls the zone of desired outcomes. We need to focus on this and focus on things that are in the zone of desired outcomes, not what's popular and not things that have a low effect size. So when anybody tells you this is going to work or this influence or this approach is going to work, ask what's the effect size and then see what happens. You'll get blank stares. So now I'm going to have you do an activity. Using Hattie's scale, in your groups, have this discussion. What is the effect, you think, the average impact of technology on student achievement using Hattie's effect size? So have a quick conversation and determine what you think is the average impact of technology on student achievement according to John Hattie's effect size scale. Take about 2 minutes and have a deep dive discussion. Okay, have you got a number? Shout it out. What's the average effect size? 0.3. Somebody's read the book. Give me another effect size. 0.2. Can I hear another effect size? Back of the room. 0.1. A pragmatist. Anybody else? Can I hear 0.7? 0.8? 0.6. Okay, in the research world, that's what we call a range. But here's what he found out. The average impact of technology is 0.34. 0.34. Here's the kicker. It hasn't changed since Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. Boom. Despite the popularity of opinionators who opine on how to best use technology, the impact of technology is low, it's miserable, and it hasn't changed in 50 years. That is a wake-up call. The average effect is actually less than the average effect size of 0.4. And it hasn't changed in 50 years. Think of the expanse of technology evolution that we've had since the 1960s. And yet the impact on student achievement has been dismal and unchanged. That's confounding. That's a wicked problem. Now I want you to imagine two graphs. One is an exponential graph, one is a flat line. Which do you think represents expenditures in technology in these United States? Which do you think represents student achievement? Yeah. Our spending has been exponential. The impact on student achievement has been low and unchanged. And I'm here to tell you, we can reverse that. We can reverse it and have an exponential change in student achievement and flatline our technology expenditures. But it begs the question, have we, at no small cost and effort, developed schools that are technologically rich but innovatively poor? Can I get an amen? I think we have. I think we've invested in programs that are rich in technology, but innovatively poor. That constitutes a wicked problem. Now, I know I'm from South Jersey, but wicked is not my term. Wicked came from the research, actually. Rattel and Weber in 1978 categorized levels of problems. And a wicked problem is a problem that's not well structured, it's not well defined, it's not well understood, it's important, and it's unresolved. I've committed my life to disrupting the epidemic of low-impact technology use in schools in order to unleash students' limitless learning potential. And I've spent most of my adult career pondering the question, why has technology been so ineffective at changing student achievement when technology has transformed nearly every human endeavor you can think of? And here's why. I think I know why. We've been engaged in a planar shift. We've been engaged in a shift moving from an industrial age system of teaching and learning to a digital age system of teaching and learning. Yet it's the same system. We've been moving along the x-axis. So we've taken a 19th century donut and put 21st century frosting on it. You scrape away the frosting, what do you got? You got a stale donut. We got to bake a better donut. We have to rethink what it means to teach, what curriculum means, and what assessment means in this 21st century. And I think what we need is an axial shift. We need a shift, not just on a plane, on the X-plane, we need an axial shift and move away from systems that privilege memorizing old knowledge to a system that's focused on whole child mastery and well-being and whole system mastery and well-being. The workforce in 2050 is not going to hire people based on their ability to memorize. They're going to be hired based on their ability to identify problems, not just solve problems. So that means this is a shift in consciousness. Technology will not answer this problem. This is not a technological solution. It's a shift in consciousness. It is a human solution. So I take a very sociocentric approach to studying this problem. And that's why I wrote this book, Disruptive Classroom Technologies, because I aim to disrupt the epidemic of low-impact technologies in our schools by shifting our consciousness of what we mean by teaching, what we mean by learning, what we mean by curriculum, and who does the assessing. All right, now, I do a lot this with Marzan. I'm going to do a chunk and chew. I want you to chew this over and answer this question in your table for the next minute or two. Were you surprised by John Hadding's findings? Why or why not? Have a discussion and reflect on what I just shared with you. Okay, well, I've discovered how we can disrupt this. I've discovered how we can change this trajectory. And I'll explain it using a simple rock and roll metaphor. When it comes to modern teaching and learning, high-impact pedagogy is the melody. High-impact technology use adds the harmonies. And together you get great music. It took me 38 years to come up with something that simple, but it's really clear, the research is really clear, that when teachers and students use technology to enhance highly reliable teaching and learning strategies, the results are off the chart. They're huge. Now, how did I come up with this model? It's an interesting story, and it's a rock and roll story. It's an American story. Because I grew up in South Jersey in a place that's really rural. I'm from a rural part of South Jersey. A lot of people don't know that. There's 1 million square acres of wilderness in South Jersey called the Pine Barrens. And that's where I grew up. So I spent most of my time teaching myself how to play guitar when I was 14, sitting around a campfire, playing great songs that I heard on the radio and translating what I heard on the radio onto my 6-string guitar. So I was playing Beatles and Eagles and America, John Denver, Country Roads. I must have played Country Roads 1,000 times. And then I heard this. Yeah. I couldn't go back to Country Roads. How do I go back to doing the same old thing that I was doing when I heard something so amazing that totally disrupted my world? Eddie Van Halen rocked my world at age 15. And I happened to listen to him on a radio station, and he said, look, for all you guitar players out there, you're probably the kind of person that's listening to music on the radio and playing it on your guitar around a campfire. He said, keep doing that. That's important. but know that you're in a stage. And if you want to get better, you have to go through another stage. So he said, he put a framework for me. He helped organize my musicianship. And I thought, oh my God, I'm that kid. I'm the one who's sitting by the campfire playing. And he said, that's a stage. Every great guitarist, Eddie told me, and he told everybody on the radio station, but I felt like he was talking to me. Like, yeah, Eddie, tell me more. Tell me more. What do I need to do? He said, you got to go through another stage. Every great guitarist has gone through this stage. And he said, I call it the Chuck Berry stage. Every great guitarist learned to rock like Chuck. It's toe tap, and this is great American music. Chuck Berry almost single-handedly invented rock and roll. And Eddie said, you got to go through that stage. Learn all the scales. Learn to transpose up and down the neck and play like Chuck in order to get to another stage, which is when you're innovating on your own. You're creating your own form of expression, your own form of expressing your emotions and your thinking through your instrument. And that was a framework. Eddie gave me a framework at 14 that I still follow to this day. And it's a continuum and a hierarchy. I'm moving up towards my own innovative playing, but when I learn a new song, I go back to the campfire stage and I'm just learning the rudiments, learning the basics. It's very much like John Hattie's visible learning model. Surface learning, deeper learning, knowledge transfer. Don't stop at deeper learning. A big mistake a lot of people make is thinking that deeper learning is the end point. It is not. Surface learning is when you learn the basic facts, recall, the rudiments. Deeper learning is when you connect that learning to some past knowledge and some deeper understanding and elaboration. Knowledge transfer is when you take that knowledge and apply it in a new context. That's the only way that knowledge becomes part of our permanent self. That framework was really the antecedent for the T3 framework. Because at the T1 level, that's the use of technology to support surface learning, memorization of facts, basic recall, basic details. At T2, that's when students engage in deeper understanding and engage in knowledge transfer. At T3, students do knowledge transfer in real-world contexts. So let's dive a little deeper. To translate means just to express the same thing in a different language. That's what the word literally means. We have been translating basic instructional methods and administrative tasks from analog to digital for a long time. We're just moving from pencil and paper to ones and zeros. The impact on student achievement, not so great. There are two elements to this that I call automation and consumption. Automation is when we use technology to save time, to automate tasks, to reduce errors, to increase our efficiency. And it's important. It's a stage. And we need to recognize that while it's important, it's not the end point. In consumption, that's when students and teachers consume content-related knowledge and information from a device as opposed to a book or a magazine or an encyclopedia. It's important, but it's just a stage. We need to go through another stage, and that's what I call the transformational stage, because that changes the person doing the task. Transformational technology use is student-focused use. Let me show you what I mean by that. The first element is called production. In the production element, I've developed 3 strategies synthesized from my research, from Bob Marzano's research, and from John Hattie's research. And here's what we found. Students need to have their own goals. Students need to set mastery goals for every unit or lesson for which they're being assessed. Who owns the goals? Typically, it's the teacher. If students don't translate those goals into their own words in a way that's strategic, measurable, and actionable, they don't own it. Having students produce their own mastery goals is the first step in unleashing limitless learning potential. Because then the child learns how to establish incremental growth goals. And then the second strategy asks kids to monitor 3 critical currencies: effort, progress, and emotion, affect. When kids monitor and track how much effort they're putting in, and then they monitor and track the progress based on that effort, and also track their feelings, their emotions, from low, moderate to high. I call it the awesomeness scale. When we're in the surface learning phase, kids are probably at the 2. When we go to deeper learning, they're probably at 1, they may be at 0. Because you know why? We don't like to be not good at stuff. That's a terrible way to phrase it. We don't like to suck. We don't. We don't like when we struggle. We get grumpy. And we need to learn self-regulation. This creates a feedback loop from the student to the student, where they think about their emotional frame, the effort, whether 1, 2, 3, high, medium, low, and the progress as a result. And what they're going to find is that there's a direct causal relationship between effort and achievement. And at first, their emotions are going to be probably at a moderate phase, then it's going to dip, and then when they get to the transfer, it's going to get higher. The amount of effort will decrease, and their emotional state will be higher. And the third strategy, give kids the choice to represent their learning however they want, using digital tools that are open-ended. So students generating their own assessments allows kids to own the assessment of their learning. At the production level, who's doing all the work? Who's the subject of every sentence? Right. I'm not asking teachers to do more. I'm asking teachers to ask students to do more because they want to, and they will if given the opportunity. Just like Eddie gave me a pathway forward, I took it. Give your kids the pathway forward to establish personal mastery goals, track and monitor their own progress, their effort, and how they feel, and their ability to represent and express their learning creatively using whatever tools they choose in whatever format they choose. This element, production, helps develop individual student efficacy. But let's not stop there. The next element I call contribution. And in contribution, the student recognizes that they're a part of a larger learning community and can be a valued contributing member of that community. So here are 3 strategies. Instead of telling kids what not to do in the first days of school, have kids tell you how they learn best. And have come up to a collective understanding of what are the conditions that optimize learning for them. And then phrase them as promises and commitments. A promise and commitment comes from within. Rules and expectations are outside the self. So having students own the behavior management of the classroom is incredibly powerful and removes a huge burden from teachers because they don't have to be the ones meting out punishments and rewards. When students learn to self-regulate collectively, they hold themselves and each other accountable, saying, you promised, you made a commitment, it's our promise, we believe this together. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. That should be our first thing that we do in schools, is have kids produce promises and commitments. The second thing is, instead of just consuming tutorials that teach kids what to do, have kids produce those tutorials. Have kids create learning tutorials designed to teach someone what they now know. And then curate those tutorials in online museums using free tools, Screencastify, Screencast-O-Matic, WeVideo, Flipgrid, Nearpod. There's a ton of these resources that kids can use to create tutorials to teach someone what they now know. And then curate them using Google Sites or any free website. The contribution element teaches kids that they're a part of a collective, and it develops collective student efficacy. Collective student efficacy has an exceedingly high effect size, which hasn't yet been determined. Haven't made the connection in research yet. Collective student efficacy, I'm willing to bet, will have an even higher effect size than collective teacher efficacy. So now that I've told you I'm a researcher and we did research, well, what does the research say? Well, in my book, Disruptive Classroom Technologies, I show that the strategies at the T2 level, at transformational technology level, have an effect size of 1.6. That's equivalent to quadrupling student achievement. This has been peer-reviewed at the highest level. This is work that I've done with Robert Marzano when I was actually the Vice President of Educational Technology at Marzano before I spun off and did my own thing. Eddie would be proud. And collective, this is level 5 evidence. The preponderance of evidence shows that these strategies have an effect size of 1.6. Remember the old effect size of technology, 0.34? The T2 strategies are off Hattie's scale, 1.6. It is a quadrupling of student achievement. Now that scares people, but it shouldn't. because our kids can do a lot more than we think they can if given opportunities to express their learning, to be more involved in planning for their learning, and actively evaluate their own growth and achievement. Growth alone isn't enough. It's got to be growth and achievement, because them's the rules. Now, what if we could double academic achievement? I think we can. I think we can, because the research shows we can quadruple it, so I'm kind of undershooting it. Transformational technology use builds collective student efficacy and mastery for current learning. So now, I've given you a chunk of information. I want you to chew it over. In your tables, have a 2 or 3 minute discussion and chew this over. How might you explain the difference between translational technology use and transformational technology use? Go and have a deep discussion about 2 or 3 minutes. Go. Okay, if you could bring your conversations to comfortable closure. And I apologize. These are important conversations to have. But take this conversation back to your school or your district and talk about innovation, because we need a common language to describe what innovation is and looks like. Now, the T3 framework is a disruptive innovation because it's easy to understand, it's relatively straightforward to apply, but has a profound impact on student achievement. Now, while transformational technologies helps kids master current learning, we also need to prepare kids for the future. That's the dual purpose of education, is to help kids master current learning and consolidate the skills, the knowledge, and the aptitude to master future learning problems. And that's what I call transcendent technology use. So when you implement those 6 strategies, that's it, 6 student learning strategies in the T2 level, students will learn content faster. Another way of looking at that doubling of achievement is not just students will learn twice as much, but they'll learn with more efficiency. You'll get time back into your instructional week and year. What are you going to do with that time? Have kids identify wicked problems that matter to them in the real world. That's what I call transcendent technology use. The first element is inquiry design, where kids use technology to identify a wicked problem that matters to them, investigate it, learn what's understood about that problem, learn some resolutions that have been applied, whether or not they worked, and then defend their unique contribution. I've got kids in kindergarten working on wicked problems that matter to them. Now, granted, the world is a little smaller, and the wicked problem might be effective behavior in line for recess, but it's still a problem. When you give kids an opportunity to realize that they can make a valuable contribution to make their local and global worlds a better place, they'll take it. And by investigating a wicked problem, I suggest use the Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations developed this wonderful resource, globalgoals.org, and it lists 17 domains of wicked problems that matter to kids, from gender inequity to ending poverty, ending hunger, life on land, life below water, quality education, sustainable communities. Have kids explore these resources, which are very kid-friendly, to identify, investigate wicked problems, and then imagine a resolution. Imagine a solution. That's what inquiry design is all about. But then let's not stop there. The next element I call social entrepreneurship, where students are learning to be social entrepreneurs. That means that they iteratively design ever more robust solutions to those wicked problems that matter to them. They do it by raising awareness of the problem in the first place. Because if people don't know a problem exists, it doesn't. Raising awareness is tantamount to a first step towards solving that problem. So I have a very very precise process where students dream, imagine, and iterate solutions to those problems, beta test them, keep going back to the drawing board, and then scale what they find. This is the design process. This is the scientific method and design contextualized in classrooms to prepare kids for their future. So transcendent technology use really helps kids prepare them for the future. Transformational technology use helps them master current learning. We have to do both. We have to help kids master current learning and masterfully address future learning problems. That is really what makes education so great and so difficult. Education is the noblest profession because it touches upon every profession, astrophysics to zoology. Every zoologist had a teacher that lit their passion pilot light or allowed their passion pilot light to get lit. And I'm here to tell you, when a child's passion pilot light gets lit, it will never go out. It will never go out. Helping kids see that their education is not an end to itself, but a means to an end, is a powerful awakening. And students see that they can make a valuable contribution to making the world a better place. Once kids find their passion, everything else improves. Everything else improves. Not just what they're good at, but what problem they want to solve. So we should stop asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? We should expunge that question from our vocabulary because it's bankrupt. The jobs that were available 30, 40, even 5 years ago are going away through automation, through artificial intelligence, machine learning. We should stop asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And start asking, what wicked problem matters to you? And what are you going to do about it? What wicked problem matters to you? And what are you going to do about it? Then they see their learning as a means to making the world a better place. That's a powerful position for kids to be in. Then they become unstoppable. Schools that have taken my T3 challenge, because this is a challenge. This is a moonshot challenge. It seems crazy to double student achievement. People get scared. People walk out when I tell them you can double achievement. Because it's so far out of our realm of what's possible that it seems quixotic, it seems crazy. But it is possible. It is possible. So now I want you to just think about this in your own mind. Do a thought experiment. Suppose you have accepted my challenge. Suppose you've just accepted the T3 challenge. What's your next step? What are you going to do? A 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. That's a hell of a step. It takes courage. It takes commitment. And it takes contribution. But we can do it. We can do it. And with the guidance provided by the T3 framework, which has been scientifically researched at the highest levels, we now have a common language for innovation in schools here in Arkansas. We can double academic achievement in Arkansas. But it'll take courage, it'll take commitment, and it'll take contribution. Now, you've just heard from me. So who am I? You don't know me. I could just be a charlatan. I could be making all this stuff up. I'm from New Jersey. A lot of people make stuff up in New Jersey. I don't know if you've heard, but we... That's right, you're from Jersey. You know what I'm talking about. Don't be skeptical. One thing that I think has been a wonderful gift of growing up in New Jersey is that I grew up really skeptical. So skepticism is healthy. So don't take my word for it. Take the word of these guys who have reviewed my research, reviewed my findings. Robert Marzano said this is a compelling vision for the future. The great Michael Fullen, unbeknownst to me, these are all unsolicited reviews. Michael Fullen called the T3 a brilliant breakthrough in understanding use of technology for learning. Professor Yang Zhao calls it a compelling vision. Alan November, my friend Alan November, calls me an innovation Sherpa, which is great because I'm actually a mountaineer. So I'll guide you to the top of the mountain. And I'm most pleased that John Hattie reviewed my work, reviewed my book, reviewed my research, and he gave me the term T3 challenge. He said, this is a challenge that you're giving schools. But he said, this T3 challenge, it's credible. I'm not making this up. It's credible, it's powerful, and it's exciting. Let's do it. So I asked him if I could use that term, T3 challenge. He said, by all means. So I'm inviting you to take the T3 challenge and learn about this work, learn about these strategies, implement them in the classroom, and evaluate the impact. And I'll guide you every step of the way. When you work with me, you get lifetime tech support. Just recently, actually, in the last couple of months, my research findings, all 40 years of my research was just inducted into the University of Oxford's Research Encyclopedia for Education. So everything that I shared with you, Level 5 research, the preponderance of research, has been vetted and peer-reviewed by at the highest level of global scholarship in the English language. So this is indeed credible. It's powerful and it's exciting. And I invite you to take this T3 challenge with me because this is our time. You know, this is really our time. We got into education to make the world a better place. We all got into education to change the world. Now we can do it. This is moonshot thinking. Doubling academic achievement and learning how to evaluate that, which I will show you, is indeed a moonshot. It sounds crazy, but it's doable. And once we do, we'll never look back. We'll never look back. We will double student achievement in these United States. We will double student achievement in the United States, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And that's what makes it great. And the first step of any innovation, any invention, the first step is imagine. Can you imagine doubling student achievement in your school, in your district, in your state, in your nation? I can, and I invite you to go on this journey with me. If you want to learn more information, I've got a ton of free resources and information on my website. You can just scan this QR code. Follow me on Twitter. I'm going to start a series of monthly chats around T3 with people all over the world that are taking the T3 challenge. It starts here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Thank you very much for your time. Rock and roll.
All right. Well, I think we've had some powerful messages yesterday and today. We still have an afternoon in front of us. I do need to remind folks that if you have a school banner and you haven't had your picture taken with your banner, Natalie would love to meet up with you at some point in time so that you can do that. And since if you don't take your banner, we have to lug them all back with us. We would really love it if after you take your picture with your banner, you take your banner with you. There are cases, and Natalie can hook you up so that you have your case to take your banner with you. We do want to thank Amy Bell, who is a program coordinator with the EAST program. She was able to bring us some students who got me to teleport through a wall. So I have to tell you, I always wanted to be on Star Trek, and instead of flying in a plane, I wanted to, just end up showing up somewhere in the transporter, but I got to do that virtually yesterday. So we are really thankful for the Berryville High School and Hellstern Middle School students who were a part of the EAST demonstrations that were out there, some really cool projects kids are doing. And with that, I think what I just want to leave you with just this excitement that the work that you're doing is so important. And not everybody has the courage and commitment to make this contribution, but you all do. And we'd like to continue to be in touch with you through the network, be looking for what we're doing with the informal networks for learning, and enjoy your afternoon sessions. We really appreciate everybody who's been part of this summit, and enjoy your learning for this afternoon. Thank you.